Hello and welcome to F Sobriety. I am Craig Woods, and we could murder Rouge, Colonel Mustard, Professor fucking Plum for all the shits I give.
Hi there, I am James Hamilton, co-host and editor with these guys, and all I have to show for it is a bandolier, an extremely temperamental ray gun, Craig's teleporter, and my Alanis Morissette CD that Alan assured me was stolen from our car years ago.
I'm Alan Todd, and of course, there's giant robots coming out of Florida.
We are here to wrap up our Doom Patrol Season 3 coverage, just looking at the finale, where it all left us, and maybe a little bit of chat where we think the show might be going. Broad strokes, first of all, guys, how did we enjoy the finale of Season 3?
I thought it was bloody brilliant.
No, I hated it.
Yeah, I think we can all agree it was pretty great.
It was a joyous hour of television.
Yes, fabulous. More of this sort of thing.
And take that, Reddit, because they're a fucking superhero team now.
Right, and
Hashtag Doomforce.
I imagine we'll be talking about that further down the line, but yeah, it's quite interesting that they chose to... I was going to use the word accelerate, but clearly that's not the right word, since here we are at the end of Season 3, and they're working towards becoming a super team. But I think what's quite sweet about it is they're working towards becoming a super team in exactly the only fashion that this show has already established, you know. There's ways in which that final scene, it seems like a disaster waiting to happen. So, looking forward to it. So, Doom Patrol Season 3, Episode 10, aka the season finale, aka Amends Patrol. It was written by Chris Dinges, who also previously wrote Penultimate Patrol, Finger Patrol, and Wax Patrol, which are all big hitters in my Doom Patrol pantheon. It was directed by Harry Giorgian, who also directed Jane Patrol and Time Patrol, which... that's a real gamut, because Jane Patrol is probably the least funny episode of Season 1, and Time Patrol is one of the most hilarious episodes of Season 2.
And like once again in this episode, they managed to juggle those two things, the seriousness and the hilarity, quite well.
Very much so.
So we begin with the aftermath of the bus crash that we witnessed towards the end of the last episode. I was really loving the effect of Rita's snaking arm, as everyone is just lying in complete carnage. And the choice of music here is Margot Guryan, Take a Picture, and it's another great example of, this show does that a lot, where they pick a very sort of innocent sounding nostalgic song from like the 50s, early 60s, and use it a scene of either complete tragedy or chaos. Because we care about these characters so much, we already have all the feels, and there's something about using such an innocent sounding song at this point, particularly given where we know where Rita is mentally. I just love the contrast of those elements.
It did kind of freak me out that her arm was just snaking back towards her body over all the broken glass, though. That was making me anxious.
It was really well done though, man. I like the effect of that, of her still being unconscious, or like body kind of reforming back to its shape, which is good, because maybe like former Rita, her body would have just turned into a blob at that point.
This is not your daddy's Rita.
Right, this is Rita Redux.
She gets back into her shape.
Yeah, and it's even like the way that's staged and everything. Obviously, it's still a novelty to see Rita using her powers in this way, and so there's something quite exciting about still seeing that at this point. It's like, oh yeah, that's right, Rita's properly super powered now, but then you have to remind yourself as this scene unfolds, it is a really desolate scene. Like the way Vic carries Jane out, I was shitting myself for Jane in this moment. I had a real bad feeling that Jane was going to be badly injured at this point. And Larry carrying the space maggot, or Keeg as we now call it, and having a hard time with that, Keeg constantly zapping him.
Yeah.
Keeg with a G.
Yes.
Yep.
See, in my head it was Keek, and I was just like,
Is it Kiekaboo or Peekaboo?
Peekaboo, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that.
Yeah, the fact that Rita is trying to maintain control of the group while, a powerless Vic is carrying Jane's unconscious body. Larry's being zapped by Keeg.
Yeah, this rally speech moment is just so brilliantly ironic.
It's like rain.
Everything will be fine. No.
And I did quite enjoy Vic's line where he says, "Oh, I get it, you flipped your pancake." And Rita's insisting, "No, Jane will spring back, we'll all be fine." And I guess at that point we switched to see Jane in the underground, who is also saying to herself that things will be fine, and then finds that the underground is completely blocked.
And there's some strange residue.
Yeah. So Jane resurfaces and basically tells Rita that she's in no shape to help.
She's back like a spring lily.
Quite. And so Rita, interesting stuff from Rita here, because she's trying to bring it back to Cliff despite the revelation that Larry made on the bus prior to the crash, that they now know that that was not quite Rita's mission per se, and that really this is all about revenge for Rita. And Larry's really having none of it. Again, though, I mean, I love this is such serious stuff from Larry in this moment, like he's taking none of Rita's shit, and yet he's sitting there with a maggot in his arms, and he's wearing a Hawaiian shirt over his bandages, and it's like, this show is just the best.
And it's so powerful when Vic just says the words, "We are not a super team."
Yeah.
How the turntables.
Yep.
Then Enter the Fog. Yay for Shelley Byron.
That's exactly what I've got written as well.
I love at this point, Shelley Byron turns to the camera and starts speaking directly to you, Craig, where she says, "You were unsatisfied with the results of the flagellation."
I made that same note, but I am still dissatisfied because I want to know what she means by that. It doesn't seem like it's been anything massively profound, because it looks like the rest of the world hasn't really changed particularly, so I don't know. I liked I preferred the Grant Morrison version of the Brotherhood of Dada, in the sense where their mission was to actually break people free from social and societal conditioning, which doesn't seem to be what this was. I feel like the Sisterhood need to up their game slightly. But I love the Sisterhood, and I'm sad that they were not in this episode, bar Shelley. So that's a black mark against this episode. I was hoping to see Lloyd and Holly. Yeah, I was a bit disappointed they did not show up.
Where's that fucking bike?
So Shelley tells Rita that she clearly understands what Rita's feeling right now, and she's trying to warn her basically not to go this route, and she knows that both Laura and Rita are kind of better than this, which I have some mixed feelings about. I mean, I think what they do with Laura later in this episode is really interesting, and I think it works, but I felt it was a bit early for Shelley to say this at this point. But I'm not going to complain too much. I love seeing Shelley. She's great. That actress is amazing. I love the presence she brings to the screen. There's also another note about Shelley later in this episode, which I hope will be a signifier that we are going to see more of her next season. That would be nice. I guess we'll see.
But yeah, she still has faith, and she's proof in what she says here that we were talking about this earlier in the podcast. Well, not earlier this episode, obviously, but earlier in the series of the podcast, that we were hoping that the Sisterhood of Dada would eventually not be straight up villains.
Yeah, and they have done that, which is good. I was certainly overjoyed about that. It was fantastic. I mean, they're basically they're like a second version of the Denizens, like a sort of darker Denizens. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping. I actually have a note later. I might as well mention it now since I just said that. But wouldn't it be cool if the Sisterhood crossed over with the Denizens, teamed up? I mean, I don't see why the Sisterhood can't take refuge in Danny.
The Sisterhood of Dadani.
Nice. But I think that'd be a cool team up.
Could happen. Want it to happen.
Yep.
The petition starts here, folks.
So meanwhile, Monsieur Mala, who we last saw wheeling Madame Rouge on a gurney, apparently he's been sitting there all night thinking this over, and he's sitting here smoking a cigarette. I really enjoyed the whole optics of this, which is fantastic. I've been so pleased with the fact they even brought Monsieur Mala in to this extent, because I was not entirely sure they would even do that in this show. I mean, part of me would like to see more of him, but what they've done with him was really great here. And it's great CGI, and it's great motion capture happening here as well. Whoever the actor was they used for the motion capture, doing a good job of doing some gorilla-isms, smoking that cigarette in the most gorilla manner possible.
But he's had enough.
Yeah, he's sick of the brain shit. Evil's no longer the big deal that it was for him back in the day. So he's calling it quits. Although, one might argue, it's still a final evil deed to just leave Laura here.
Yeah, other than the fact that she can shapeshift and therefore should not be a problem that she's tied to a chair.
Yeah, eventually, yeah. But I'd quite enjoy Laura's threat that she would have his hand for an ashtray. But he thanks her...
son of a simian whore!
But he thanks her for being the catalyst to his conversion to non-evil, because I don't think we can go as far as to call it good. And he has no doubt she'll figure things out. And of course she's equipped with Cliff's brain in a jar, which, as she's struggling, falls all the way down to this apparent pit where the Brotherhood of Evil
deposit their garbage, I believe, is the way that Monsieur Mala describes it.
And down there is Big Roger the Robot, whom we have seen in flashback in season 1. And Roger the Robot, I don't believe it's referred to as Roger in the show, but I know it's called that from the Arnold Drake run in the 60s. Quick note about Roger, I might as well just mention it here. That robot was first introduced, I think, round about the middle of Arnold Drake's run. And the story was Morden, the future Mr. Nobody, used it to try and steal the Statue of Liberty. I don't know why anybody would want to do that, or what purpose that would serve. But
that's classic Silver Age nonsense.
Yeah, and yeah, basically the Doom Patrol have to come in and thwart them. In fact, I believe, do you remember on Nickelodeon they used to have the DC Nation shorts, like they used to show sometimes between programmes?
I only had council telly.
If you don't, they were like wee minute-long cartoon shorts that just used to like very quickly adapt storylines from like the Silver and Bronze Age, and that one was actually, in fact, it's probably on YouTube. I will link it in the episode notes. But yeah, that was one of them. But yeah, one of my favourite things about this show when this robot first appeared in season 1 was like, okay, they've literally just transposed that from the page from the Silver Age, and they have not done anything to update it. It just looks exactly like that. And in that comic is, I believe it's Monsieur Mala who is piloting the robot at the time. But all of the characters who are like present in this episode are pretty much all there. Like Monsieur Mala, the future, I guess the only one who's not here in the episode is Mr. Nobody, but Monsieur Mala and the Brain and Madame Rouge are all part of the Brotherhood of Evil in that story. So it's quite fun to look at that stuff. I think I've said before, but even for people who are not fans or think they're not fans of Silver Age comics, Arnold Drake's Doom Patrol is properly bonkers by Silver Age standards. It is worth looking at. So yeah, as soon as that happened, I was like, alright, Cliff's brain is going to go into the fucking robot. That's what's going to happen here. And sure enough. But anyway, back to Jane for a moment.
Before you move on from that last scene, Laura's comedy struggling is fucking fantastic. Like, she moves like once, and then she sits for a second, and then she goes, fucking! Like, the most Scottish like struggle I've ever seen on a TV show. It was fucking great. Like,
even her struggling is Scottish.
Yeah.
It's the most Scottish struggling scene on screen since Outlander.
I was listening earlier in the week to a podcast where they were interviewing Shoshana Sachi, and she actually confirmed that Michelle Gomez did a lot of ad-libbing on this show.
Oh.
And they just let her do it because everything she came up with was funnier than what they had written.
Amazing.
So there you go.
Hashtag national treasure.
Yep.
I kind of knew that there had to be some of it, because there's no way whoever wrote this had any idea, like, some of the Scottish
right, I think that explains the use of Bampot a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
That must be a first, right? That must be an absolute first, like the first time ever that Bampot has been used in an American TV show.
There certainly can't be too many.
It's certainly the first time it's been used in a DC Universe property, I assume.
think that's safe to say. Alright, so Shelley has taken the rest of the Doom Patrol into herself, into the fog, where it turns out that's where Jane's personalities are hiding out.
Do you think that's the most people that's been inside her since that
Talladega, yeah.
And Jane picks a fight with Hammerhead with the immortal line, "You're gonna eye fuck me." So yeah, Jane goes to find out what's happening here. Meanwhile, Larry is having problems with Keeg, and Jane's alter Mama Pentecost, who can translate languages.
Yeah, including light and colour.
Yeah, tells Larry that Keeg wants to merge with him.
Not living colour, though.
That's more Dr. Harrison stuff, the whole cult of personality. But I love that at this point in the show, Larry's so desperate, he's just like, it fucking hates me. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh no, everyone knows what's happening here except you, Larry, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
We can all see it.
And I think, I will probably say more about this as we go on, but the way they handle Larry this season I actually thought was really bold, because Larry does not get a lot to do this season in terms of like the action stuff, although he was present in the zombie versus butts battle, so I guess coincidence. But there's a lot of Larry stuff this season has been very similar to what he went through in the first season, which I think is what fueled a lot of the criticism from those people who criticised this season. But it's been different in a crucial way in the sense that he has shown actual development. I mean, he's in a very different place mentally and emotionally than he was in the first season. And I think the whole theme of him trying to let love in, as his subconscious self said a couple of episodes ago, and to allow himself to be, even though it's symbolically and metaphorically in the case of Keeg, to be kind of a parent again. And that stuff is really great. I really love the way they handled all of that stuff. And both the physical acting from Matthew Zuck in this episode, really great. And he looks like such a forlorn, anxious man. And Matt Bomer is always knocking it out the park with the voice.
How do you do that when your face is completely obscured, though?
And you're wearing a Hawaiian shirt.
Yes. Yeah, somehow managed to emote above the volume of all of those things. Yeah, pretty great. I was going to save this for later, but I'll just drop it here. I mean, it sort of turns out that Larry had overcomplicated his union with Keeg. I mean, if he'd just stopped worrying, he probably could have got on with this a lot better. His mistake was trying to ditch Keeg by tucking him away in the middle of the woods. And what I want to say to Larry about that is, in the voice of John Goodman from The Big Lebowski, you see what happens, Larry? You see what happens when you tuck a stranger in the grass.
And it's a hearty congratulations to Craig for the best joke of the episode.
Anyway, meanwhile, in Florida, we get a brief interlude with the brain in Cliff's old body.
They call me the Wanderer. Yeah, the Wanderer. I roam around.
Jenny, you dog, that bit was
Squeezing the old
fantastic.
lady's bum. It's a good day to be the brain.
The thing is, this scene alone is like a perfect trailer for the Brain spin-off show. Just a sitcom set in Florida with the Brain. I would watch the shit out of it.
Would watch it hard.
The good times don't last though. Laura turns up with Cliff's brain powering Big Rog, as predicted. And we get the comedy pursuit
hilarious.
with the Brain in the golf cart.
I love how short it is. The little slow golf cart. It's like 3 steps.
It's so perfectly paced. And Cliff saying, was that the sound of my only body being pancaked? And as they're walking away, and he says, remember when we thought you were an Ottoman?
It's so good.
Because she's off to Doom Manor and Rita fucking far. I know there's not a great deal of it, but I love all the stuff of Madame Rouge piloting Cliff around and then Cliff taking back control and just the little back and forths. Particularly like Cliff's monologue later on, which we'll come to, but when he's like, you know, Cliff's revelation is just so heartwarming.
Yeah. Yeah, I also noticed as well, before this episode started and the timer came up, it's a shorter episode. And I was like, oh, shorter finale. But it does not feel like it, man. They managed to pack so much into this episode. It's crazy.
It is so
it's
fast-paced.
Boom, boom, boom.
I thought you were singing the Vengaboys for a second. I got very excited. Boom, boom, boom. I want you in my Doom Patrol.
Is this episode called Boom 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 Force?
Maybe. So back in the fog, in the sweet shop, Jane's personalities are hiding out in there, and some of them are looking a bit poorly, including Pretty Polly. More like Poorly Polly.
Yep, she's looking a wee bit crumbly.
Yeah.
She's looking crumblier than a Cadbury's flake at this point.
Peaky Polly.
Polly had been a bit of an arsehole this season, but I did feel really sorry for her in this scene.
Yeah.
The fact she just says she was scared, she didn't want to be alone. I was like, oh, poor Polly. And Jane's line here, she's still dishing out the we can fix this. It's like, Jane, when will you learn? And then enter Dr. Harrison. Alright, so let's deal with this.
The note I have here at this point just says, oh, Dr. Harrison, fuck off. In capital letters.
Here's my read on where Dr. Harrison is now that we finally have the denouement of this Cold War between Dr. Harrison and Jane this season. Dr. Harrison is like metaphorically a climate change denier, because when Jane is trying to explain to her that hiding out here...
That's certainly a theory.
Yeah, that she has that line, she says, well, that's certainly a theory that it's going to kill us. It's like, no, you can see the evidence of it right in front of your eyes. And the way that she ultimately agrees to move back into Kay's mind in exchange for power, that's essentially the way that neoliberal capitalism works. It's like, we'll give you a bit of climate change help, but we won't actually relinquish any power, which would be the real way to tackle climate change, would be to start dismantling some of these corporate structures.
we'll say we'll lead the world in climate change, and then days later sell 80 million acres of oil and gas drilling off of the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, exactly.
I reckon that she's not doing the whole climate change denier. I think she's doing the long game, and I think this was all part of the plan. She's just holding out long enough to get Jane to agree to the deal. I don't think she's stupid enough to deny it. I think Harrison is like, right, this is a risk, but it's a risk worth taking because I can become primary off the top of this. So
maybe,
boom, and she's willing to sacrifice the other personalities and her own hand or arms, as it looks like. But I think it's genuinely a long game thing. I don't think she's doing it as a denial. I think she's doing it as a purely as a long-term power grab. A lot like neoliberalism in that aspect.
Yeah, it still works.
I was going to say in the same regard as how anyone who actually matters in this debate, like kind of who has the power to change it, is kind of like, that's not going to affect us. Fuck it. Like,
yeah. So Jane threatens to get Shelley to evict them all, but Dr. Harrison reminds her that Shelley could ultimately just do whatever Dr. Harrison says, because as we talked about before, Dr. Harrison's power is the power of persuasion. Harrison feels that here they've embraced their freedom, but then Jane notices that Harrison herself is even crumbling. It's the one thing she just won't give up is control. She's pathological about it. And yeah, I still think that's true of neoliberal capitalism. I still think the metaphor works. Yep. I can see everything's falling apart, but it's like, hey, I'm still in control. It's fine. Fuck my grandkids and their grandkids. Yep.
The "this is fine" meme never going out of style.
Yes, kids. The world may be fucked, but for one glorious moment, the shareholders got a really great return on their investment.
Green deal. Speaking of deals, it appears that Jane makes a deal at this point.
Make me a deal and make it straight.
Shelley takes Jane back home to Doom Manor, and that's where we get this very, it's not flirtatious, they already did the flirtatious thing, it's kind of confirmation. Were you really just helping or trying to draw me in, Jane asks, and Shelley says, which answer is more likely to get you to come and search for me again? And I've written in big block capitals,
I will go down with this ship.
But there's so many reasons why this is great. It's really fantastic to see Jane be vulnerable voluntarily with someone else. The only time it's come close, we have seen her withdraw really quite violently. In fact, even at the start of this season, there was that immortal moment where she almost committed suicide. Cliff saves her. She hugs Cliff. That was as much as we got. The rest came in for the group hug, and it was like, no. So it's kind of cool to see this happening, and it makes complete sense because of how strong the writing was in Dada Patrol when these two first met. And we spent quite a long time talking about the chemistry between them in that scene. So yeah, I'm really hoping Shelley will come back.
Let's make this Candyland fuckpad a Candyland fuckpad.
So back in the underground, all the personalities are getting together to try and shift the rubble.
Driller Bill!
Driller Bill's time to shine. Driller Bill has been somewhat sidelined since about season 2, and it's bothered me a wee bit, I have to say, so it's quite nice to see her here. In Grant Morrison's run specifically, Driller Bill actually has quite a prominent role in a lot of the stories, and she is actually something I was hoping to see last season that we never saw. In the comics, spoiler for a 30-year-old fucking comic book run, both Baby Doll and Flaming Katie also die in Grant Morrison's run, but in a different way from what we saw in the show. And Driller Bill is completely distraught when Baby Doll dies because she loves Baby Doll, and she's like the only personality that can entertain Baby Doll, and they have a really like close relationship, and we never got to see that in the show. Admittedly, there's limited time to do all this stuff, and we are talking about 64 personalities, so you know, but it was nice just to see her turn up here.
Ants motherfuckers.
Ants motherfuckers. Alright, so that pretty much sorts Jane out until we get closer to them all coming together. So let's talk about that social media robot rampage map.
So good. So fucking good. It's like the best Indiana Jones like pastiche or whatever that I've ever seen. It's fucking amazing. Yeah. And every single tweet was gold.
It was fantastic. I don't know about you guys, but I skipped it back a couple of times just to make sure I saw everything. It's like, that is fantastic. Yeah. And again, the animation on Raj is just so good. It just brings me such joy to see that thing on screen. Just this big piece of ridiculous Silver Age nonsense on screen. It's just fantastic.
It absolutely shouldn't work in a modern TV show. It should stick out like a sore thumb, and it does, but it sticks out in a good way.
More giant robots.
Yeah,
this is the biggest feast of metal I've had recently, apart from maybe that Crypta live show. Oh wait, guys, is this an episode of Riff Sobriety, the podcast in which we discuss all things metal?
I think it might be.
Cue the music. Hello and welcome to Riff Sobriety, the podcast in which we do the thing that I just said there. Guys, did you see the Crypta's very first live show at, I've forgotten the name of the festival in Brazil, but their first ever live show since getting together?
I saw a bit of it because you sent me the link.
Oh, that would be how
And I
you
was
saw it,
like,
that would make sense.
What's this? Ooh! And watched some of it, and yeah.
For people who've never listened to us talk about Crypta before, they're a Brazilian metal band who are kind of an offshoot from another Brazilian metal band called Nervosa. It's a long story, right? But all-female death metal band, and they are absolutely impeccable. And their album, spoiler, might be turning up in my top 10 albums for next episode. So yeah, that was pretty spectacular. And it's not like I wasn't expecting them to be completely impeccable live, but just seeing it unfold, so great. All the riffs just sound absolutely fantastic. They are so tight live. So yeah, Alan, get it in your eyeballs and earballs.
I fucking will.
And on that note, that wraps up for another episode of Riff Sobriety. Good ep.
Good ep.
Those guys know a lot about metal.
Those guys sure know about that Crypta concert and other Brazilian metal briefly mentioned in it. So what are you guys drinking tonight? Holy shit, this isn't the bar break. We're in the middle of an episode.
Oh yeah, no, sorry, I knocked us off course there. Get back on the map. So inside Rog, Cliff is trying to talk Laura out of whatever she's planning here. Cliff has some pretty decent dialogue here where he claims he was a dickhead, but he had a revelation while in that jar. He's going to work as hard as possible to change, and if he can do that, then Laura can as well. Laura just has some cruel jibes at Cliff, and basically Cliff eventually manages to take control of the Rog body.
Just by shouting stop enough.
Just like that.
Yep.
Check it out, shitbird. Laura threatens to kill him, to which he says, but I'm already down of the parky. And, again, it's another example of this show in one of its funniest and also kind of exciting moments. It still has that element of just reminding you, this guy is possibly at death's door. And it's like, oh, we love Cliff, and at this moment in time, he's genuinely in fear for his very existence. But he's still got time to wisecrack. And that's our hero, Cliff.
Not only does he have time to wisecrack, he has time to wisecrack, and he literally changes Madame Rouge's mind. You can see and hear the change in Laura's tone when he's doing his whole monologue, and you're like, Cliff's getting through it, or
yes.
Of all the people.
Nihilistic good vibes is what I've got.
It's really nicely played as well. Also really loved Cliff's line, let's celebrate the fact that you didn't murder me, so there's definitely a non-fuckwad person in there.
And Laura does a Nelly Furtado.
I'm like a bird, I only fly away.
Oh, nice.
She's a man-eater.
That is the superior song, to be fair.
It is, yeah. I really enjoy the fact that when Cliff decides he's going to... what his own mission is, he stops and he does the breathing exercise that Rita showed him back in season 1. And to see that giant robot doing that is fucking priceless.
What do I do now? I'm trapped in a robot body. Wait, I'm always trapped in a robot body.
So he makes his way to Clara's place.
Make him away.
And I enjoy the fact you hear someone looking at the carnage and saying, where's the Justice League when you need them? And Clara's wife says, I see your dad walked by. You see the giant robot person in the front garden.
That's probably the most, kindly she's put it, though. This one, she actually just kind of, rolls her eyes as if, oh, Cliff. Every other time she's been like, fucking Cliff. Whoa.
This is the trailer for another separate sitcom. Giant robot Cliff comes over to stay with his daughter. So we get confirmation here that he did use Clara's credit card. So I turned out to be right about that. To be fair, it wasn't made explicit, but I kind of assumed the worst. Because I think, as I said a couple of episodes ago, watching Cliff would just make me so fucking anxious that I was just assuming all the worst was happening. So yeah, that happened.
But again, it's another stellar performance by Bethany Ann Land.
Yeah, and it's a nice exchange of dialogue here. Cliff being very apologetic, saying, you were too young to remember some of the things, but I can never forget. I was too busy being great, I forgot to be good. And she's telling him, I don't need you to be special, I just need you to get healthy. And he says, I can do that too. It's a beautifully heartfelt bit of dialogue between the two characters, and I love how it's just broken up by the cops arriving, and Cliff makes off. It's like, I have to go make things right with my friends.
I stepped in a Prius.
every time Cliff does it, and it's like kind of wonderfully clueless and kind of almost like naive or sweet or something, but just like in a really fucking over the top stupid way. And especially the fact that he's a like 60-foot tall fucking robot airing out all the dirty laundry in front of the whole neighbourhood. And every time he says something, she's just like kind of looking over at the neighbours and being like, yeah, but we don't need to talk about that right now. Like, just kind of, it's a beautiful moment, but it's fucking hilarious. Just.
All right, so we'll deal with Larry, shall we? So meanwhile, back in the fog, Vic has that great anecdote about his uncle's dog Bo and the many bows. This was fantastic. I love how long it went on.
It's kind of fucked up. He kept naming it Bo.
Yeah, it's the Driller Bill is the one that says that. I love the fact it was her that said that. Keep calling it Bo is kind of fucked up.
And a totally gross misrepresentation of my situation.
Yes.
Poor Larry.
But let Keeg be your Bo. That is fantastic writing.
Is this also a nod to, like, I'm not overly familiar with the Doom Patrol comics run, but I've heard you talk about it. Is this a nod to the number of different Negative Man personas that have been in the Doom Patrol, do you think? Just keep calling it the same thing.
That's a good call. It could be, because there have been so many different variations of that character. Although they have adopted different names. Like when Grant Morrison's run, it was called Rebus, and you had Valentina Vostok, who was Negative Woman, obviously. But yeah, I mean, there has been different variations of it. I believe Gerard Way did different things as well, but it was still. In fact, I believe what we're seeing here with Keeg is a Gerard Way invention. I think I remember reading that online.
It's my way or the Gerard way.
So yeah, this would be another iteration. So yeah, it could be a sly meta reference there. Another great Zuck/Bomer moment here, where this is one of Larry's best speeches, and he gets a lot of good speeches. They do give Matt Bomer some good work here on this show, but this was a great speech where he's explaining how, from his perspective, everything in his life was forced on him. He never really got to choose it, and you really get the real depth of Larry's anxiety about this, about possibly offering himself up only to fail someone else again. It's really heavy, and it's so beautifully played. And again, let's remind ourselves, it's beautifully played by a Hawaiian shirt-clad invisible man. And it goes on to say, so this would be my choice, and if it goes wrong, he would be to blame, and he doesn't know how he would handle that. And he starts to muse, maybe he should have left him in the woods, to which I refer him to my Big Lebowski pun of earlier. But Vic reminds him of what his subconscious self said, that he has to let love in, and ultimately the negative spirit chose him to do this.
And Vic really, sorry to go on to Vic here, but since most of the rest of this episode is those two together, I think we might as well. Vic pulls some proper superheroics here. He may not be Cyborg, but goddamn, he's still a hero. Yeah,
it's more heroic because he's not Cyborg. I mean, I think that the optics of it as well, of seeing human Vic do this, was a really neat choice. Yeah, God bless Vic. He's been great this season. The writing on his character this season has been so good. So, and it made perfect sense, this intersection of where Larry was and where Vic has found himself, that Vic can finally say, okay, this is sort of the answer to why I am who I am. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It kind of all brings it together. It's really beautiful writing. The visuals as well, I mean, it's a very simple thing to give somebody luminous blue eyes, but it looked cool. It was all really nice stuff.
All of my notes, like for each of the kind of different sections, all start with like inspirational Rita, not so much. Inspirational Cliff, nihilistic good vibes. Not so inspirational Vic, Bo the Golden Retrievers, and then and back to inspirational Vic with Let Love In. Like it's just It's an inspirational fucking episode.
Yeah, the team, as a team, they're so great here. I'm waving my Team Doom Patrol flag at these scenes because, like as much as the characters' journeys have been separate for quite a lot of this season, and they sometimes are in previous seasons as well, it's moments like this, you're like, oh no, this is why they're a team. You know, they have all these weird flaws and all these outlandish things going on in their lives, but ultimately they come together when they need to, when it matters, when it makes sense for the story as well. And it never seems contrived. I think that's one of the things I always love about this show. We're here at the finale, you know things are going to wrap up, so you expect them to. And indeed they do, but they do it in a completely natural way that evolves like quite seamlessly from everything that's been written for each of these individual plot lines.
Yep, they are that big dysfunctional family, and when they have to come together, they goddamn come together, and it's beautiful. Kind of unrelated, because of the very end of this episode, last night I was like, screw it, I really want to watch Mr. Robot Season 1 Episode 10 Zero Day. So I watched that last night, and then I rewatched Doom Patrol this morning to take my notes for this episode of the podcast. And basically Christian Slater dragging Rami Malek around Times Square was like totally reminded me of the way that Larry's carrying Vic around, where it's you're carrying someone who's bigger than you, and you're like, I'll support you, whatever the fuck. I don't know, just visually I was getting big kind of similarity vibes from that. That's not the similarity between those two episodes. The similarity is the song.
Yes,
again, but,
Time Zone.
Yeah.
It's all connected, man, says Charlie Day at his big pinboard. There's been a lot in this season about each of the characters having to deal with their own choices and what kind of choices they have to make going forward. That's true for every single one of these characters this season. Some of them have bigger choices than others. Some of them a bit more complex and problematic. We will deal with Rita shortly. But I really feel like the way that these two characters, Larry and Vic, intersected in their journeys was just such nice writing. It was just so smooth. It's the kind of thing I just really enjoy. Like as someone who has written fiction, albeit not for the screen, it's just nice. You see the workings of what the writers were doing there, and it pays off in a very satisfying way.
I mean, you have written fiction for the screen.
Kind of.
Which is still something I really want to see on screen.
Is this the Halloween episodes of...
Oh, that as well.
Certain-
Aye.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was referring to. The River City Halloween special. Why that's never been on is still fucking
Yeah,
appalling.
I'll explain that for the listeners. River City is a now sort of long-running Scottish soap opera, although if you're outside the UK, again, I reiterate, soap opera is a different genre from what it means in other countries. Ostensibly set in some semblance of somebody's imagining of Glasgow. And for years, I used to submit every year an idea for a Halloween special wherein a zombie outbreak would occur in Shieldinch, which is the name of the locale in which River City takes place. And I would write a full script, and every year I would change it to fit in with whatever the main current storylines were on River City. And the reason I kept doing it is because there was somebody at the BBC that kept replying to me, and it was the same person, and they were clearly reading this and really enjoying it, and I was like, alright, I'm just going to keep fucking sending them then. And at the time I was writing other things. I was also writing a very long novel that eventually saw publication a few years back, and so I was just looking for ways in the downtime to keep my writing muscle working, basically. And so it was just something to have fun with, just write a mad hour-long River City script involving zombies, and every year just sent it to this same person, and this same person would get back to me and say, I really enjoyed that. Don't think they'll accept it though, because it's not, I think they've got other plans for these characters. And it got to a point where I was like, I know that, but I only sent the first one as a joke. You know what I mean? But it just became a tradition. I just kept doing it. The only reason I stopped doing it was because I just didn't have time anymore to watch River City, because it wasn't high up my list of priorities. The only reason I kept up with it is because I knew at some point later in the year I was going to be doing that, so I better have some knowledge of the characters. But I just didn't have time anymore. Like, I work a lot more on my quote-unquote day job these days, so I just don't have the same amount of time anymore. I sort of miss doing it though. It was a lot of fun.
So I just have to think that they're probably in like someone's office, like all those scripts are in that same person's office, still in the BBC Scotland.
In a binder, just like, kind of, it gets passed around just like in the lead up to Halloween, just like, right, come on, right, everybody gather round.
2026, they're all going to be combined into one feature-length movie, and you're going to be like, wait a fucking minute, that's my script.
Well, there was one year, I can't mind if I said to you, I'm sure I said this to you at some point, but I think it was like 2015 or 2016. They did actually have an episode. Well, I mean, they always have an episode every year set around Halloween, because like all soap operas, they always recognise the holidays.
Oh, don't be your social justice warrior nonsense. Holidays,
They-
Halloween, mate.
These days, mate, if you say Happy Halloween, you can be thrown in jail.
Just for saying Happy Halloween.
When did this come
These
in?
days.
That's a hip reference to a Stuart Lee routine from a few years ago. We have gone right off the rails here. But I'll just say this really quickly. There was one year, a few years back, where one of those episodes set around Halloween did actually have an element of a thing I had written a couple of years prior. And I was like, hang on a minute. And it was like, you know how sometimes, like EastEnders does it, sometimes they just have a moment of like pure craziness. And then it'll turn out to be, you know, it'll just not be mentioned again, or it'll be like a it'll be an episode where somebody's high on drugs or something like that. They'll just throw some mad shit in for like one episode. It was like that, and it was like a scare moment on this Halloween set episode, and it was basically lifted from something I had written about 3 years prior. And I was like, hang on a second. Why am I not getting a writer's credit on this? I thought about writing and complaining, but I didn't bother.
Shell suit Bob got full of fucking mushies and just went.
See, I
off
thought
the
they
rails.
definitely missed a trick there, right? Because you know, when, the domesticated zombie in Day of the Dead's called Bob,
Yeah.
so they could have a chill suit Bob.
That's one I never picked up on. That's actually a good one. Anyway,
Thanks for listening. We'll be right back to cover the rest of the season finale of Doom Patrol Season 3 after these short messages and this feature-length episode of River City. Real quickly before we go back to this episode of Doom Patrol, what are you drinking tonight, guys?
Boringly, as always, water.
this guy. The podcast is not called Yay Sobriety.
I am fully fucked up on crack though, so
Ironically, though,
It's like rain on your wedding day.
I'm drinking tea.
I am drinking Bicicleta Malbec of Chile,
Oh, check you out.
because no matter how hard I push for this sponsorship deal with Green King, they're just not replying to my emails. I think it's because the subject line is always great new slogan idea, and then the slogan, they're just not getting back to us.
Yeah, it's weird. They'll never understand it. They're missing a trick.
If anyone who's listening to this podcast happens to work in the corporate arm of a brewery or vineyard and you fancy sponsoring an episode, give us a shout on Twitter at FSobrietyCast. So, Doom Patrol.
That's that important business out of the way.
Professional as we are. We really are getting worse at this.
Laura revisits the Dada party pad, plays some old vinyl, gets a real oceanic feeling. Mm-hmm. Again, it's another great needle drop.
love me.
Yeah, I love that. It was great because not just because it's a callback to what Rita was doing many decades ago, and there's this sense that Laura wants to kind of step into where Rita is. She kind of wants to be the one who's justified in doing what she's doing. But there's also this sense that the whole love me, don't look at me, she's sort of talking to herself, like unable to accept herself at this point. Like there's a hint of humanity getting through that Cliff has kind of chipped away at. And eventually she notices this new door where Rita has hidden the time machine, to which she says, Rita, you clever pain in the arse. And then we get a great sequence here where Shipley narrates Laura's thought process. And Laura tells Shipley to go shit in your fucking hat.
Why am I talking to another,
fucking
robot?
robot. But yeah, clearly on a mission to try and change herself for the better. And we will get to see the fruits of that in just a bit. Let's deal with Rita. Rita in the brain. So,
Sinister Rita.
back down in Florida. Rita walks in. First she thinks she's dealing with Cliff.
I'll tell you, to be honest, I wasn't expecting to see the brain still remotely intact after being stepped on. But
It was a fucking delight, though. Just him pulled himself along by his arms, and then when he has the realization, he says, "Oh, fucking Gargax!" And Rita closing the doors behind her, full of menace. And later we get the brain reading out that letter from Monsieur Mala.
Jagged little pill.
It's like rain.
It's a big sad breakup scene, and I do feel like this is a wee bit of just a slight reference to where Monsieur Mala and the brain storyline goes in the Grant Morrison run. I feel like the Alanis Morissette CD is a particularly choice inclusion at this point.
I was getting big the trip to Italy vibes from that.
Oh, nice.
Is it Alanis or Alanis?
It's Alanis.
How do you know that?
Because I just decided.
So the brain recognises that Rita has been, as he puts it, dancing around the darkness. And if she assists him, he'll help her kill Madame Rouge.
And that's where we get that great line that you said at the start.
We can kill Rouge, Colonel Mustard, Professor fucking Plum for all the shits I give. Whoever wrote that line, take a bow. Some nice stuff here with Rita taking the knife out of the drawer. It's like, what's she going to do with the knife? And of course she just starts unscrewing his dome. And it's like, is she going to stab the brain? Nope, she's got something way worse planned. And Rita insists that she and Madame Rouge are different in one way, despite the brain saying there are many similarities. that Rouge just couldn't get enough of power. And this is like a recurring theme here, because this is very much the situation between Jane and Dr. Harrison as well. But Rita makes the case that she's motivated by love, the great love that she lost and that Madame Rouge stole from her. And she's done dancing around the dark, and that's where we get boiled in the bag brain.
Yeah. She does also say, and a love for my friends, which I was
She does say that, yeah.
But yeah, boiling in the bag brain, that was fucked up. Yeah. Wholesome Rita boiling in the brain.
My notes are all caps, boil in the bag brain, exclamation mark. Is this Rita's Walter White moment, question mark, exclamation mark. This is proper dark, because, okay, the brain's a bad guy, but fucking hell, this scene was horrible. I actually, in that same interview I was listening to with Shoshana Sachi earlier in the week, I forget what the questioner asked her, but they were basically saying something along the lines of, we were a wee bit unsure about how to feel about this, and Shoshana Sachi just said, well, you're supposed to be unsure about how to feel about it. And Rita is on a journey, and she's in a place where it's very much a grey area. There's very much light and dark. So the writers, I think we can take it as read, have got this in their mind going forward, that we've not seen the last of Dark Rita.
Yeah, she is not done with dancing around the darkness at all.
Yeah, this is going to be a theme going forward.
To the bit where like Rita and Laura are reunited, and how that scene finishes, like if you didn't have her boiling the brain in a bag, as Craig put it, then you wouldn't really have the fear of what might have happened at the end of the scene that you don't see. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're kind of like, fucking hell, man, if she does that to the brain, like, what the fuck? Like, did she, like, somebody else? And then...
You fully believe when you see her hand go round Laura's neck at that point what she said to the fog earlier, which is, I'm going to do with my bare hands what you couldn't do with a song and a dance and fucking bird masks.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a great line. So yeah, let's talk about the lead up to that then. So back at the manor, there's some almighty rumbling taking place. Inside the underground, Hammerhead knows something up, realises that Jane might have given Harrison the primary role. She's none too pleased. Jane has accused Hammerhead of being Dr. Harrison's bitch, and Hammerhead says, I'm no one's bitch, and they get back up there. I like this moment because I like the camaraderie between Hammerhead and Jane when they do get on. You know shit got real when the two of them get on. So Vic and Jane run out to meet amnesiac Laura with the note attached to her chest. The wording of this note is in itself worthy. The writing on that is worthy of all the awards.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, you are a terrible person. You'll meet these people whom you have wronged. Jane dresses like a deranged sock puppet.
That's fair.
Vic, tracksuit, stick up ass.
Boris Karloff. He's got stuff to do.
No, Larry.
He's having a baby.
Yeah, it's just beat. Everything about it is perfect.
Yeah.
It's like,
am I really a bad person? Bitch, you turned into a killer baby. Fuck yeah.
And then Giant Cliff appears with all the shit he stole from him, but he can't stop. The fucking parky, he says. And off he walks, headed for Cloverton. So Jane gets Flit to take her inside the robot, and Cliff explains to her, the meds went out the window when I get shoved into a transformer. To which Jane says, you can transform. And it's the pause where he goes, no.
That whole scene with them two, like, it's funny as fuck, but it's also really fucking heartbreaking. Like,
it's properly harrowing as well.
Oh, man.
Oh, so meanwhile, though, Larry and Keeg unite, and I don't know about you, but Keeg is cute as fuck. So, cute and adorable
baby
as fuck.
negative spirit is super cute.
Just the little eyes and stuff, like, aww.
Keeg the friendly negative spirit.
Which is like leading to the beautiful moment when Larry comes out in full Negative Man.
Finally,
glowing.
we get that visual from the comics of Negative Man actually flying, looking fully powered, looking quite the thing, super cool. And the music builds, everything about it, so perfect. And then he just depowers and collapses. And Laura voices what I think we're all thinking, well, that was rubbish.
Is that the bit where she says to Vic, so what do you do? Like, and he's like,
do you do anything heroic?
So, I get it. You're a useless person.
But the irony there, because of what we've seen Vic do for Larry just moments before. But Laura just says, okay, so you're a useless person.
But goddamn if Vic doesn't just immediately run after.
Yeah, I don't. What exactly is he planning to do? Who knows? But he just runs right in there. But Laura finishes off her note. These people you will meet are morons, but this is the key to your redemption. And Rita, presumably with the aid of Miss Yumala's teleporter, reappears to grab Laura by the throat, as mentioned. Wow, this is an incredible scene. April Bowlby and Michelle Gomez are both great here. And again, I know we have to keep saying this all the time, or maybe we don't, but we seem to do it. Just how ridiculous the optics are of this, and the context of so much of what's happened here. But when you take it down to the human level, this is some of the best drama between these two actresses here. It's just so good.
Even when it's super intense, though, it's also still quite funny, because, like, she's pulling her towards her by the throat. And Laura's trying to read her notes to see if she's...
Yeah.
Don't look at your notes, look at my face.
Yeah, look at me and remember. It's a really powerful moment. And then Laura, sure enough, begins to recall that I destroyed it, you built a beautiful life and I destroyed it all. I'm sorry, you've every right to kill me. And then the kicker, she says, but I'm not worth it. This is a bold line to put in, because that line, that they're not worth it, is such a cliche. But here it's absolutely, it's used in exactly the right way. And we know that Rita's already done a terrible thing that Laura doesn't know about. And even before that, she did a terrible thing, depending on how you look at it, of going back in time and make sure the Doom Patrol died again. But, you know, so we know that Rita does have this darkness in her, but there is this other part of her, you know, she could still be good and pure. And Laura clearly recognises that, and there's enough humanity in Laura to say, don't do this. It's not worth you becoming that person.
I was edging my seat at that point, because I was like, is Rita just going to be like, I assumed part of Doom Patrol, part of me assumed that Rita was just going to be like and snap the neck and that was going to be the end of it, but nope, Rita does something so much better.
I wouldn't have been surprised if that happened, or if she found some other way to engineer Madame Rouge's death in this episode.
You're just hoping Zack Snyder's taking notes.
Jesus.
Meanwhile,
inside Big Rog, Jane accidentally pulls her self-destruct lever, as you do.
Fuck you, that was a very important detail.
She and Cliff make some grim jokes about their imminent demise. Like they've probably scrambled some stealth bombers. Silent but deadly.
Silent but deadly.
And then we get another really beautiful moment where Cliff thanks Jane for always pulling him out of the bullshit and always forgiving him. And I love how awkward this is. Like, Jane genuinely doesn't know what to say, because when you come to this point and you possibly are both about to die, are any of us prepared for such a moment? And he even says later, we should have waited another minute because now I'm uncomfortable.
It's just awkward.
Shout out here to Brendan Fraser. We've not done it in this episode. He does so much here without even being on screen. And to essentially be a stationary piece of flesh in a fucking jar inside a giant robot, for him to emote as much as he does here, and for Diane Guerrero to act against it, it's fucking amazing. They're both so good.
Yeah. So then we get the beautiful cut to the Little League baseball game.
This scene, man, this was like season 1 Doom Patrol. I got big vibes of, you know, when it was really sort of introducing us to the idea that they live in the vicinity of this very Midwestern, very stuck in the mid-20th century small town. Yeah, the Little League Baseball, it couldn't have been a better setting. I also noticed that one of the billboards is advertising the Our Town show, which apparently is still a thing. That thing has been going on for it. He must have recast Rita's nemesis. And Cliff comes in, wee boy shouts, "Robot!" Robot! And let's just get right to it. What happens here, guys? Big block letters in my notes. Giant Rita, many exclamation marks.
So good.
Incredible.
I've got Rita to the rescue and a massive heart.
So this is a thing that loads of people have been waiting on since season 1, because this is something that even the Silver Age was established really quickly as part of Rita's power set, and it's one of the most iconic parts of Arnold Drake's run. Rita in some ways is the most powerful member of the original Doom Patrol because she can make herself giant. In the aforementioned issue of Doom Patrol that I was talking about, where Rog appears, it is Rita who basically does this. This is actually like almost taken from the comic. So there's a bit of a direct reference going on there. The other thing that's really sweet about this scene, though, is when she stops Cliff, and Cliff says, "I want to go home," and Rita says, "We can do that." that's a direct callback and repetition to the dialogue between them in the very first episode of the show. The very first episode of the show, when Blob Rita causes carnage in the middle of Cloverton, Cliff eventually stops her by lifting that big slab of tarmac up. And Blob Rita says, I want to go home, and Cliff says, we can do that. And it's like, that is nice. That is nice.
I didn't know that Rita could make herself big, but I should have guessed that because... There's another quick aside here, guys, sorry. Because last night, I was on eBay, as I often am, looking for Dungeons & Dragons miniatures.
First of all, gay.
Looking for a particular set of miniatures, or looking for a particular type of miniatures. And one of the results that came up was a Batman miniatures game set of League of Assassins. And I was like, oh, I wonder if there's more Batman miniatures. Maybe they'll be useful for stuff. So I clicked through it, and what did I find, Craig?
I think I know the answer.
Doom Patrol miniatures in the Batman miniatures game, and the quote-unquote Elastigirl miniature, her arm is getting big and her hand's massive, so I should have, I was like, yes! I can see that she can make herself big, but yeah, I am 100% buying the Doom Patrol miniatures set, even though it's over $100.
Money well spent.
Nice.
But you get the donkey, so I mean, what are you going to do?
Oh, really? Cool.
But yeah, this appearance of Big Rita was like the best kind of delayed gratification. Probably my most exciting bit of delayed gratification I've had recently, apart from maybe that Angel Haze EP that just appeared last week. Wait, guys! Is this an episode of F Hip Hopriety, the podcast in which we discuss all things hip hop and rap music related genres?
Would you look at that, Craig? I think it might be.
We better cue that music. Hello and welcome to F Hip Hopriety, the podcast, rap music and such. I said it already. Yeah, so Angel Haze dropped an EP last week. Full disclosure for the listeners. Guys, you will know this. Angel Haze is possibly my favourite MCE of all time. Yeah, I love her. I love everything she does, and I love the fact that she has this stylistic pendulum where she's like very an incendiary, fiery MC, but then she can also be a very soulful R&B singer. And she just dropped a new EP last week called Girl with a Gun, and it's... Listen, I'll take what I can get from Angel Haze at this point. She very rarely releases stuff these days, and she has been sort of talking for years about, I finished a whole album, and then it doesn't get released, and it's like, what happened to that album? She's like, I've moved on to other stuff now, I don't think I want to release it. Like, fuck you, Hazy, fuck you. So she's done that at least twice in the last few years.
I was going to say, yeah, she's got a fucking Prince vault somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's so much, she's even like, I remember a few years ago, she actually trailed that she was doing a collaboration with Lady Leisure, and this was before Lady Leisure even like really, like, in the last few years her career's kind of exploded. It was before that, we're talking maybe 2017, and they recorded it, and both Lady Leisure and Angel Haze tweeted about it, and then it never saw the light of day, and I was like, what the fuck is happening? Stop doing this to me, Hazy, god damn it. And so like every time she says, I'm releasing new stuff this year, I'm like, okay, sure, I'll continue re-listening to Back to the Woods forever and ever and ever. Back to the Woods is my favourite of her releases, and I feel like it was written for me. That's why it's called that.
I feel like Angel Haze's album releases are sort of like, the hip-hop equivalent of the album that was supposed to be released with Alan Moore's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, The Black Dossier.
Yeah, it's not easy being a fan of her, because anytime she's on social media and says she's doing stuff, I have to learn to just distrust anything she says and just pretend she hasn't said it. I'd probably be a lot happier, less frustrated if I didn't follow her on social media, honestly.
Oh my god, she's the Elliot Alderson of Twitter. She's an unreliable narrator.
The Elliot Alderson of hip-hop.
Angel Haze, more like Angel Lies.
Anyway, enough dissing Angel Haze. I love her, stop it. Only I'm allowed to do it. But yeah, I don't know whether she's trying to compete with Sky Ferreira for just never releasing stuff. Sucks for me that they're two of my faves. What was I going to say? Oh yes, Girl with a Gun. So it's a great EP, and it is at least 6 new songs. She hasn't done that thing that sometimes artists do with release a couple of singles, then they go, I've got a new EP coming out, and then it's just like half of it is stuff you've heard already. It is all new stuff, so I will at least, sit back and say, okay, fair play, you did actually give us 6 things I hadn't heard before.
That's practically a mini album.
It's really diverse. Like this, it does have a couple of very hard tracks where she does her full flame MC style, but then there's a couple of tracks that are there's a track that's extremely funky, and it's the first time I've ever heard her do anything remotely funky, and it works incredibly well. Vocally, her voice has gotten a lot more versatile. That's clearly something she's been working on when she's not fucking releasing things. And one particular song, honestly, I thought it was Anderson .Paak for a second. Like, she's literally just doing an Anderson .Paak impersonation. I was like, is that Hazy singing? That's incredible. Top quality. Girl with a gun. Angel Haze. Heart eyes. I love her. Except when she doesn't release stuff, which unfortunately is most of the fucking time. And that has been another episode of F Hip Hop Variety.
Toodle pip.
Good ep. That guy knows
ep.
a lot about being a frustrated Angel Haze fan. Postscript to the giant Rita scene, 2 things. I really enjoyed what looked like toy cars when the cop cars arrived. I wasn't sure if they were CGI or not. They looked like fucking toy cars. So I don't know whether they shot that on a stage with like a CGI background and they actually used model cars, because they look pretty real. I hope they did, because I like that idea. But my other note about it is, and not to get all actually about it, but how did Rita's clothes expand?
Reed Richards, Unstable Molecules.
Yeah, I think we'll just have to gloss over it. We've seen so many times that Rita turns into a blob that she loses her clothes. But apparently that doesn't happen when she turns giant.
Yep. Maybe it's because she's in control. Maybe it has to do with her control over her powers. Maybe she can expand her clothes.
This is
with
ridiculous.
her body.
It doesn't add up at all. Fuck this show. I'm never watching it again.
Bad rating, guys. Bad rating.
So then we get the
Plot hole patrol.
Inconsistency patrol.
Wardrobe malfunction patrol.
Okay, that was worth it for that one. We get the denouement here as they're all gathered round the telly. News report on superpowered eccentrics. And Rita, ending this episode as she started giving a rally speech, although this one has a bit more backbone and ground upon which to build. She insists there was no damage this time because they're different. They're not the people who they were back in the aforementioned first episode of this show. Therefore, it's time they choose to label themselves. I really like the dialogue here where she starts listing off the things they've been called: eccentrics, freaks, and she says weapon. It's like, ooh.
Yeah.
Because not just for the callback, but I like the idea that there's still that sharpness in her at this point. Like, I feel like there's still that edge where she's like, I've not forgotten this, Laura. And she gets to ask the question as well, why are we? Which I love that they've made that a thematic wraparound for this season. And I think they did, and I sort of mentioned it earlier, but they did a great job in this finale generally with each of the characters finding their way towards their own answer to that question. So here Rita's posing it, what does it mean as a team? And she has this little speech about how a weapon is only a tool that's as dangerous as the hand that wields it. And Vic asks her, so you waited till after I ditch all my cyborg gear to come around to this idea. Which is pretty good. I quite enjoy the irony there. And Rita has to remind her, we saved the whole town, but Larry has to remind her, yes, from us.
From us.
So the show's doing a great job, I think, of it definitely is kickstarting this idea that they're an active superhero team. This is something they're going to do. But it's also reminding us, they're not really that good at it yet, though.
Yeah. They are, it's writ large earlier in the show, they're not the Justice League.
Aye.
Thank goodness.
And Rita sums it up as, we're not perfect, but we're trying to be good, which is more than most. And that's where we get the reveal that Rouge is still sticking around. And here essentially becomes an honorary member.
One of my favourite superhero trope things is a villain joining the team. Fucking love that shit.
Got to be done at some point, isn't it? Yeah, and confirmation that Michelle Gomez is a mainstay for this show, and couldn't be happier. She makes us proud.
Huzzah.
Of course, one person we haven't mentioned is somebody who's not in the room. Our old pal Cliff, who's stuck outside saying, hell yeah!
Super fucking heroes. And he's got a name.
I pissed my pants at this reveal for his suggestion of a name, Doomforce. He also says we can have costumes with like pockets and shit.
Big 90s energy.
This is actually a direct reference to, at the end of Grant Morrison's run, they actually did a one-shot called Doom Force. And it was a deliberate piss take of Rob Liefeld's work on X-Force. And it was just a Doom Patrol spin on with them all with the big shoulder pads. And the art style was a deliberate lampooning of him and Jim Lee and all the stuff that was like very big at that time. So the fact they used that as Cliff's suggestion here was pretty hilarious. They're on the ball, these writers. They've done the work.
But what they need is, they need a super foe.
Right. And that's the nightmare of the scrotum in the Suez. I did wonder if this is a sly reference by the writers to that cargo ship that got stuck in the Suez earlier in the year.
This is the real reason.
Because that was a massive balls up, I think we can all agree.
What kind of monster is that? It's not a monster. It's a big nutsack with demon pubes.
Cliff's delivery of that is so good. Yeah, that's a giant nutsack. And Rita insists, that sack is fate. Do we not need a super foe? And they're pondering how to get all the way there. And they think, of course, flip, but Jane immediately faints.
Right on cue.
And Rouge has an idea. More on that in a moment. But we get this tease down in the underground where Jane finally meets with Dr. Harrison, asks if Kay is alright, and Dr. Harrison won't answer that for the moment. But it's time for Jane to make good on her deal. Does this mean Dr. Harrison is really going to be the primary in season 4? Because that's kind of terrifying.
At least for the first episode.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how long they will stretch that out, whether it's going to be a mainstay element of the storyline for season 4.
Look, as long as it's still Diane Guerrero being Dr. Harrison and not the actress who plays Dr. Harrison, who, by the way, is great.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, we've seen Diane Guerrero play Dr. Harrison in season 1, and she was great. Makes me really scared for Jane and fundamentally for Kay. Like, what the fuck is happening down there? Get that place sorted. So Cliff, this is the most people he's had inside.
He came close in a rally.
I sometimes wonder with lines like this, when they come up with this in the writer's room, do they have to take a break for like an hour just to get all the laughs out and then come back and go, okay, right.
You can't just say that and be like, oh, that's good, we'll put that in there, you know?
And I really, even just the throwaway lines here, like the fact that Larry, when he's looking at it on the monitor inside the robot, says, looks less scrotal in black and white. But Rita finally gets a good use for her whiteboards at last, which is to explain all their lives to them because they're likely to incur memory loss. So this, for me, sums up what this new Doom Patrol as a superhero team is really about. Like, yeah, they're going to go try and do some good stuff, but in order to do it, they're going to risk wiping their entire memories, which is fucking amazing.
Every one of them with like a label.
Yeah, the way around it is like a label with their name on their foreheads and a whiteboard with some information.
Oh, it's absolutely incredible. Oh, that time travel, like Silas said, is fringe.
Yep.
And here they've you posted fringe, bro, you're going to lose memories.
Larry asks if they're rushing into it, and Rita replies, absolutely. Yes.
And that's when Cliff says, let's kick those balls in the nuts.
Oh, fuck that.
We ain't letting Madame Rouge do any driving, though.
No, she's relegated. Aye. Yeah, so there's so much great dynamics going on in the team now. It's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to where they go with this. This shot of Rita looking out the window and the camera tracks back, that was beautiful. Because it did all the right stuff. Like, you feel that something that only this show could do. Simultaneously, you've got that triumphant feeling of, yes, here we go, and also, but this is fucking ridiculous. They're voluntarily losing their own memories just to go and fight a giant nutsack, can we remind ourselves? And then world destruction kicks in. Cliff shouts Doom Force, the other shouts no.
What are you asking for?
And off they go 3 minutes into the future to the Suez Canal.
That was a bit that completely, like, I was like, why go 3 minutes into the future? Why not go like 3 minutes into the past?
Maybe it's worse if you go backwards, because we do know that I don't know why I'm trying to work out the science of this, but
it's fringe, Craig. It's fringe.
It's fringe. We posted fringe, bro. Rita did regain her memories when she travelled forward in time. So I don't know whether the effect is less when you go forward. Guys, I don't know, and I don't think they've thought it through either. I think it's just funny.
But what a choice though of song, because that track World Destruction by Time Zone, if you're not a Mr. Robot fan, it is featured in the season 1 finale of Mr. Robot. Mm-hmm. Whenever I hear it, I'm just like, yeah, it makes me pumped for whatever's coming next.
It's also a song that's sort of contemporaneous with the Grant Morrison era of Doom Patrol. This show has done so much great work of referencing all the different eras of Doom Patrol and marrying them all together in a way like they take very specific elements from each era and just retell those stories in a form where ultimately they're actually telling their own entirely new story, and they're just using all these old plot lines as ways to travel through the story that they've come up with. And there's such a great combination of elements going on in these final few scenes alone, where we finally got the Doom Patrol going to be the Doom Patrol. There's the mixture of the Silver Age stuff, because Rita's very much in charge of her powers, and she's looking very much like Silver Age Rita at this point, with her hair is like the right sort of hairstyle that she's got in the Silver Age. She's wearing the right kind of colours. We've got Big Rog, the robot from the Silver Age, and we've got all the way up to Larry with Keeg for the Gerard Way stuff, so we're all the way up to the 21st century. It's like encompassing all of these aesthetics in one single scene, and it feels, it's in a word, delightful. That whole scene is delightful. I left feeling delighted at the end of this episode. I was like, that is just, they couldn't have ended that on a better note. It's just fantastic.
And it's good because, we don't have to wait and go, are they going to have a season 4 though? Is that it? We know there's a season 4.
We don't have the trepidation this time round. Yeah, it's great. I'm so excited. And we know that the writers will already be churning away ideas, and it's so exciting. God bless this show, and God bless everyone who works on it. I did notice as well, as the credits rolled on this episode, they did something they don't normally do. They had a big ream of comic creators credits with special thanks to. Grant Morrison was there, Arnold Drake was there, Gerard Way was there, different artists who'd worked on Doom Patrol, Richard Case, Rachel Pollack was mentioned as well, Paul Kupperberg. They were all mentioned at the end, and there is this sense that this episode sort of represents a kind of, okay, we're here now, we've done it, and this next part of the story is very much a next chapter, and we couldn't have got here and told this kind of story without all the work that these people did, I just thought that was really nice. It was a nice moment to choose to do that.
So, having said all that, it's probably going to come as no surprise, as Radiohead once said, shite, that... Sorry, I've lost us the Radiohead fans. The Radiohead fans are gone, the Nick Cave fans are gone.
Dropping
they
like
left ages ago.
Let love in.
I'm going to give Doom Patrol Season 3, Episode 10, Amends Patrol, 9 5s out of 9.
You heard it here first. Well, James, I am going to score Doom Patrol Season 3, Episode 10, Amends Patrol, 8.5 5s out of 9.
An almost perfect score. You heard it here first.
Loved it. It was so nice to have Rita finally realise her potential. Vic has remained the kind of driving force of them becoming a superhero team, even though he doesn't have any fucking powers and whatnot. He still proved that he's the man.
It's a classic piece of Doom Patrol irony. Yeah, they did so much great work this season. As a whole season, you couldn't have asked for a more perfect overall arc, and each of the characters had such satisfying arcs themselves. It's really exciting to see it's always exciting to see where this show is going to go. But now that we know they're in legitimately a different chapter, now we're going to go out and legitimately try and be proactive superheroes rather than just finding ways to deal with their own shit. And I love the fact that they're dealing with their own shit. And I think if this was a less well-written show, I would be a bit worried at this point. Are we just going to jettison that stuff and it's going to be more of here are some clumsy superheroes? But it's so integral to this show in terms of who these characters are. That basically is the story. And I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what kind of things they might attempt to do as superheroes and just what kind of consequences it might engender. I'm really excited to see how that might come about.
Oh yeah, because let's remind ourselves, they're now a superhero team, right? So as you say, the show's going to take a gear shift. But they're still a superhero team where one of them is a brain in a robot body that has Parkinson's disease. One of them is multiple personalities, that the one that we're so used to is now no longer in control.
Yeah, there's a coup taking place inside amongst those personalities, yeah.
But Rita's got her shit together, although she's fucking insanely
right,
bad.
Yeah. Vic doesn't have any powers anymore and still is having, relationship issues with both his father and Ronnie.
Yep.
And Larry seems to be getting his powers and shit together, but has a baby in him, like a baby negative
that.
spirit. So he obviously can only be Negative Man for about 30 seconds at a time.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, that's something he was going to need to work on.
There may be some teething problems.
Yeah, I think we're still going to have the quality, the classic Doom Patrol
Yeah.
interpersonal relationship stuff. That, as you put it, the therapy patrol moments are always going to be a part of this show. But I think that it's just also going to be sprinkled in with, hopefully, absolutely ludicrous superhero moments as well. And also we've got Madame Rouge in the team now. I mean,
Could the show have got any better? No, but it somehow did.
It's also interesting the way in which Niles Calder is no longer a main part of the plot, but Rita has essentially become the new Niles Calder. Because we know she has that manipulative streak now, and we know she has that dark edge to her. She's the instigator behind this whole thing. And it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic develops. And I do think the writers did a great job of the very first episode in this season, where we had the fact that Niles left the key for Rita and the note to her saying, "You're the only one I trust with this," because he clearly recognised this thing in her. So yeah, they've done a good job with that.
Rita is also Niles Plus, because Rita's done what Niles could never do, which is actually turn them into a superhero team.
That's true. Yeah, so that's all fun.
Rita's had 2 lifetimes to get their shit together, though, which is...
That's also true. That's how long it takes, guys.
Niles had a long fucking time, to be fair,
Yeah, that is true as
Yeah,
well.
I think Niles was less inclined than Rita is. Yeah, there's a few things. I made a few notes here about things that are question marks for me, or things maybe I expected to see or I'm hoping to see later. The fact we got the Brotherhood of Evil in this season was amazing, and I absolutely loved every moment the Brain and Monsieur Malin were on screen. I'm a wee bit sad, though, that the Brain is no more. Apparently, there's nothing to say he couldn't come back. And Monsieur Malin clearly has given Evil the boot. I say I'm a wee bit sad about it only in the sense that we've now got the Doom Patrol being a superhero team, and I feel like if the Doom Patrol are a superhero team, their foes should be the Brotherhood of Evil. So I don't know. I'm just a wee bit. I would like them to have come back at some point, but who knows?
This is
it's still
comic
good
book
happen.
shit, Craig. No one ever really dies.
Yeah, this is true. I think I said earlier as well, I was a wee bit disappointed the Sisterhood didn't appear in this episode. I just wanted to hear Holly say something about doodads and gizmos.
The door is clearly open for them to return.
Yeah, they've got to come back. In fact, they better get their own spin-off show, god damn it. Yeah, the other question I had, and I know I mentioned it in the last episode, was that we did not see Laura and Niles ever meet.
The last episode of the podcast that we recorded when I had already watched the finale, and you guys were like, I think maybe will we see Niles Calder? And I was just like, nope, don't say anything.
But I don't know whether it's just because they couldn't get Timothy Dalton to appear this season, because I get the feeling the stuff they did in the first episode was actually initially filmed for the season 2 finale, so I don't think he was actually present in this season apart from to do the voice work for the Severed Dead. So yeah, it could just have been a case of that. But yeah, I did find it a bit surprising.
Hopefully he'll feature in some way in season 4. It would be nice to bring him back.
He's got to come back in some capacity, even if it's just flashbacks.
Alan Tudyk back as well, perhaps. Do you know what I mean? Like just because
I would love if he did.
Yeah,
I would love if he did.
Yeah, I was going to say on that regard though, like, I felt the same way about season 2 before it started. I was like, oh, they've got to bring Alan Tudyk back, because the show's not going to be the same without him. So maybe if season 4 doesn't feature Timothy Dalton, we'll be like, it's fine.
Listen, most of this season was without Timothy Dalton, and it was still a fantastic season, so it's not a deal breaker by any stretch of the imagination. But I would love to see him just turn out, even if it's just like flashbacks or something. Dalton's fucking great. Freeze your bloody
Bring
bastards.
back Dalton, bring back Tudyk, bring back Gargoax.
Oh, I would love them bring back Gargoax. Seance with Gargoax. Willoughby Kipling can do a seance with Gargoax. Yeah, my final note is I do still have the slight Woodsy's worry corner, but only about Ronnie. Because now that Vic has done the thing that Ronnie said she didn't want him to do, it's now got me back thinking, okay, did they put that whole thing about Ronnie being prepared to blow up a building full of people for a reason to prepare us for the fact that she's going to be much more of a villain next season? Maybe not, I don't know, but I'm still worried about it.
See, I'm not super worried about it, because if they do make her a villain, I'm sure they'll do it in a clever way.
I broadly trust this show, but I've just, like I said before, I've just been burned so many times with this shit that I'm not going to stop being worried until I can be sure it's not happened.
My standards aren't as high. Even if they do it, I'll still enjoy it.
Well, we'll revisit. Let's just hope it doesn't happen. Anyway, for the moment, I'm still on Team
spin-off
Ronnie.
shows.
Hashtag Team Ronnie.
Did you read that the Dead Boy detectives have been recast?
I did see that, yeah. English Steve from Stranger Things and Judgy Harry Potter are no longer playing those roles.
Well, that just about wraps things up for our coverage of Season 3 of DC's Doom Patrol, guys.
Yeah, we did it, guys. We watched the whole season of Doom Patrol. Well done us. Big pats in the back all round.
We did it, Patrick. We saved the city.
I, for one, forgot how difficult it is to do a podcast about currently running television shows and get them out even remotely on time, because we've not done that since Fargo. But fortunately for us, in the foreseeable future, we're not doing that, right?
Yeah, not until a show comes along that we feel like maybe we want to cover. But yeah, the plan is, as of January, we're going back to Mr. Robot rewatch and alternating with Twin Peaks The Return rewatch.
Up until Unrecorded Night.
On that subject, by the way, did you see last week there was an interview with Peter Deming, the David Lynch's regular cinematographer, who was slated on IMDb to be the cinematographer for said Unrecorded Night, and they asked him about that, and he did just say that he hadn't done any prep work on it yet, but it was just entering the early stages of production when the pandemic hit. So that kind of confirms our suspicions that that's what was happening.
COVID Lynch.
COVID Lynch.
Join us next time, listeners, because we are going to have a holiday/Christmas/Hanukkah feast for you.
With all the trimmings, we are going to be counting down each of us have assembled some top 10s or are in the process of assembling top 10s of our favourite TV shows, movies and music releases, and possibly a few surprises from the year of our Lord 2021, and just generally summing up how we felt about the landscape of entertainment and art and media this year. And we're just generally going to have a more of a relaxed conversation. It might be a long one. If you fancy a wee seasonal listen, maybe grab yourself a tipple.
Hope you can join us.
By all means, please join us.
Very good. Craig's going to break out the Baileys.
That's what's going to happen.
We're going to assemble around a crackling fire wearing big jumpers.
Chestnuts,
smashing.
the whole thing.
So yeah, join us next time, guys. Thanks for listening. We hope you've enjoyed our Doom Patrol coverage. If you joined us just for our Doom Patrol coverage and you've not listened to any other of our episodes, we've covered a few different TV shows. We've done an extensive rewatch of Mr. Robot Season 1. We've covered Twin Peaks The Return, half thereof so far. Mm-hmm. We've done Fargo Season 4. We did Lovecraft Country, the less said about that the better. And we do this sort of thing on the semi-regular.
We also talk about music from time to time.
James and I are doing our own spin-off show about the Great British Bake Off, which I've never seen.
Yeah. Is this an episode of
F's a Bakety?
I've lost my train of thought here. Yeah, basically what I'm saying is, we do this. We're not, obviously, as you can probably tell if you've listened to our show, professional podcasters.
Despite what you might think.
This is a labour of love. We hope you enjoy it. If you do, we would really appreciate whatever platform you listen to this on. If you left us like a like, did a share, a comment, any of that stuff, tell a friend, people you think might be into it. It's really the best way to help us out, and we'd really appreciate it.
Yes, I co-sign.
And I will not murder a bunny if you do it.
You guys can't see Alan right now, but he just winked when he said that, so make of that what you will. Until then,
stay safe, kids.
No one else is here drinking alcohol. I might as well take a look at my bottle of Como Sur Bicicleta Malbec wine of Chile.
Jesus fucking Christ. The entire Spanish-speaking world has just curled up and died.
I'd like to hear the Spanish-speaking world pronounce Bampot, right? We've all got issues. Since I just poured another drink there.
This is a very elegant sign-off, can I just say?
Yeah, it's great. We just insulted the Spanish-speaking world. Shout out to Argentina and all our other South American listeners. My bottle's looking about 50%, Craig.
I thought you said there were no bloopers for this episode.
This isn't a blooper, this is the ending. This is all staying in, this is all gold.
Oh, God help us.
My bottle is looking about 50%.
And is there another way one could possibly phrase that?
You know what? Another way one could put that is, that's half the bottle.
Toodle pip.
Well, you can't let me be the only one drinking. See what happens?
You see what happens, Larry? You tuck a stranger in the grass.
F Sobriety, Episode 29, Boom 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 Patrol, was conceived by Craig Woods, James Hamilton and Alan Todd, edited by James Hamilton, and is a production of Half the Bottle. The theme music is Colossal Estates by Errors, available on Rock Action Records. Be a hero, and visit us on our social medias, at facebook.com/fsobrietypodcast, on Twitter at fsobrietycast, on Instagram at fsobriety, and search YouTube for F Sobriety Podcast. Check out the F Sobriety Jukebox playlist on Spotify, also fuck Spotify, but check out the playlist regardless, featuring all the music referenced on the podcast, and thank you for joining us for our Doom Patrol Season 3 coverage. Is it nuclear war? What were you asking for?